Hey there, my name is Ali, and welcome to episode 4 in From Zero to Hero. Okay, if you haven't watched the episodes before that, make sure you watch them so you can follow along. In this episode, we will start with the selection tools. I'll drag my first photo here, and I'm not gonna only work with that, I'm gonna work first with something else. I'm gonna create a new file, new. Then I'm gonna make something like maybe 18 by 12. That's in centimeters. It's landscape and create. We've been through all this before. Okay. Now, like we said, you hold Alt and you zoom in and out using the scroll. Okay. Let's start. First thing I'm gonna say is the colors. Okay. Down here you have like two colors. The first one is called the foreground color and the one behind is background color. If I click on the foreground color, it will open this. Now we can choose any color. I'll choose maybe this red. And if I click on the background color, I can choose any color. Let's say I choose this blue. Okay, now if I press Alt or Option, then Backspace, it colored with the foreground color. So Alt and Option Backspace is the foreground color hotkey. If you press Control or Command and then the backspace, you color with the background color. Okay, so Alt Backspace and Shift Backspace. Okay, another thing in the colors, you see these two options. That one, the two arrows, if you press it, it like makes opposite of the two colors. It inverts them. So the hotkey for it is X. If I press X, it will make them like the opposite. However, the other one here is black and white. If you click it, it will make your colors black, white. Also, there's like a hotkey for it. It's the letter D. So X will swap your colors. D will give you like black in the foreground, white in the background. Now I wanna make this white again. So I'm gonna Control Backspace. It's back to white. But however, this is coloring the whole image because we don't have selection. We're only standing on a layer and coloring everything on that layer. Okay, so the first thing is we're gonna create a new layer. To create a new layer, the easiest way is by pressing that button here. It's the create new layer. And to rename it, just double click and let's call this one square. Okay, now we're standing on our square layer. Let's start with the selection tools. It's those three. If your like selection like toolbar is looking like this, make sure you change it like this so you can follow with us. Remember that in every one of these three selection tools, you can press right click and choose different options. You can press right click, there are several options. Okay, so let's start with the first one. If you press right click, there is the rectangle and the elliptical. We're not gonna go through these, they are completely useless. So let's start with the rectangle. Okay, to make a selection, you don't have to be standing on any layer. If you're standing just anywhere and you're just standing, you can make a selection. So let's say we're gonna draw that rectangle. Now I wanna add color on this rectangle, red. So two things I need to do. The first is I'm gonna choose the color red, press OK. The second thing is I wanna choose on which layer will this color be made. So it's gonna be made on square, so I'm gonna click on square, then I'm gonna press Alt Backspace. It will add red to that selection. However, my selection now, I still have the selection. If I move something, you see what's happening? If I stand on the selection and move it, I'm moving my selection. If it's like this and I stand anywhere and I move, it's gonna draw another selection. But now I wanna move this. So if I go to the move tool and I move, it will give me an error. I can't move because the selection is empty. So we need to get rid of this selection. So how you're gonna do it, you're gonna press Command or Control and D. So it's Control D, it will deselect. So make sure you're not selecting anything. Then using the move tool, don't try to move anything using the selection tool. It won't work, it will make a selection. So Control D to get rid of the selection. On the move tool, making sure you're on the square layer, then you can move it. You don't even have to put the mouse on it. If you put the mouse here and you just move, it will work and it will move it because you're standing on the right layer. Okay, let's say I wanna draw another selection, but this time I want a perfect square. So if I draw a square here, I have to make sure it's something like 100 pixels by 100, so I'll keep like adjusting it till it's perfect, something like that, 117, 117. So it's a completely square. Of course, this is not the best way to do it. There's another way to do it, which is when you draw, you just hold the shift button. So what the shift button does is it makes sure that it's always gonna be a square. The width and the height are growing in the same ratio. So you just draw whatever you want and then Alt backspace, it's a square. Then I wanna get rid of the selection, Control D. Okay, the last thing you can do is after you draw, you hold Shift, but then you also hold Alt or Option. What this will do is that it will start making the square grow from the center. I'll show you, like if I stand here and I draw, you see it's growing from the corner. But if I stand here and draw holding Shift and Alt, it will grow from the center of the point that I started. Okay, the best thing about this selection is you can go to the circle. Let's make a new layer. Clicking here, let's call it circle. This one is called the elliptical marquee tool. Okay, let's make the color blue. And let's draw our first ellipse. Okay, now I drew my first ellipse and I colored it just like we did. Then Control D to get rid of the selection. But now I want it to be a perfect circle. So after I draw, I'm gonna hold Shift. It will make sure it's a perfect circle. Then Alt backspace. Okay, now I want this point I'm standing on to be the center of the circle, not like the corner of it. So after holding Shift, I'm also gonna hold Alt. So now the point where I started, which was here, is the center of the circle. Okay, now everything good. Okay, let's get back to our rectangle. Let's get back to our layer square. And now let's get back to our red color. Okay, now I want to get back to that color. So I don't know which one was it, this one or that or that or that. I want to get that color exactly. So what I'm gonna do is when on the color picker menu, just move the mouse to the color you want, press click, it will sample it automatically for you. Okay, now I don't want to make just like one selection, I want to make an L letter. So to make that, I'm gonna make my first selection. Now I want to add another selection to it to make like the L. If I add the rest of the selection like that, the first one will disappear. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna press, before pressing click, I'm gonna press Shift. You see what happens when you press Shift? A small plus is drawn. Oh, don't press it too much. A small plus is drawn next to your mouse. So I'll press Shift and then I'm gonna press click from here and then I'm gonna pull. Now I made two selections of the letter L, then I'm gonna press Alt backspace. Okay, let's say I wanna draw a square and with a hollow square inside of it. So I drew my square. Now I wanna minus a part of it. So instead of pressing Shift, which is plus, I'm gonna press Alt or Option, which is minus. And then I'm just gonna draw another square inside. Now I minus this selection from the total. Now if I color, we colored only the outside part. Okay, everything is looking good for now. Okay, I want you just to like be aware that pressing Shift, if you have a selection, pressing Shift before will add the plus. Then now I left Shift. I'm not pressing Shift anymore, but we're already in the plus mode. However, if I press Shift again, it will maintain our square. So the same also for Alt. If you press Alt, it will minus. However, if you leave it and then you press it again, it will make the center is where the square is growing from. So I don't want you to get confused from Shift and Alt because they are used before you press click and after you press click. So keep that in mind. Okay, the same applies for the circle. I hold Shift and first I sample the blue color. Then I press OK, then stand on layer circle, then press Shift, then start first drawing, and then press Shift and Alt. So I have a circle, then I'll color it. No, first I'll like stand in the middle. Now I'll press Alt before I press click to go to the minus. Then I'm gonna press click. Now I'm gonna press Shift and click and Alt together to make the minus. Now I'm gonna color. Okay, I hope you don't get confused in that. because that's the hardest part for today. Okay, let's get back to our rectangle and let's make a new layer and let's call this one mix. Okay, the very cool thing about Photoshop, let's sample it first, is that we can start with a rectangle, then we can go to the circle, then I'm gonna press shift, and then I'm gonna add, and then I'm gonna go to the circle again, press shift, add, then I'm gonna go to square, press alt and minus, and then I'm gonna choose a color between red and blue. This is blue, this is red, this is between. Okay, then on the mix layer, I'm gonna press alt backspace. You see what we did now? We made a mix between the two selection tools. So you can use all the selection tools together. Okay, now I guess we're done with the rectangle and the ellipse. Let's jump to the second option. Okay, let's get rid of all of these now. I'm pressing delete to get rid of the layers. And let's create a new layer now. Okay, so on the second option, we have two we're gonna discuss. The lasso tool and the polygonal lasso tool. Forget about the third one, completely useless. Okay, we'll start with the lasso tool. The lasso tool is exactly like you're drawing with a pencil. So if I draw something like that, I have no idea what I'm drawing actually, but you draw anything, and then once I leave my click, it will automatically close in a straight line. Now I made a free selection, and I will press Alt Backspace. Now I colored it with that color. Then I press Ctrl D to deselect. Okay, also we can do a selection. Then the same way in the before, if you press Shift, you will add another selection to it. If you press Alt, you will minus from it. Let's draw the letter A. Okay, now we minused, oh, we need to add actually here. And then I will color. Okay, see, so now it works the same way, like, and another thing, I can make something like that. Then I can go to the rectangle, press shift, and add a selection to it. So I can mix it, the second one also with the third one. Okay, let's make a new layer. Let's call this one the free lasso. Okay, this one I'm gonna call it the polygonal lasso. It's called the polygonal lasso, which is that one. This one, how it works is you press click, it will add a point. Now wherever you move the mouse, the line is gonna draw. So you press click here, another point. Click here, another point, another point, another point. You keep making like points, and then once you're done, you either go to your first point where it will draw a small circle. This means like you close the selection, or if this is your last point, just double click, it will automatically close. Let's choose a green color, for example, and Alt Backspace. We can also press Shift and increase our selection, Alt and minus our selection. Okay, now I want to get rid of this green. What I'm gonna do, I want to color with the other color, which is the background. We usually color with Alt Backspace. Now I'm gonna color with Control Backspace. Now it colored everything with the white. We can press Alt Backspace. We colored everything with the green. Okay, one thing we need to now what I'm selecting is I'm selecting the outside part and I'm leaving the inside part. Now I want to invert my selection. I want to select only the inside part. I want the outside, I'll press Alt Backspace, the outside to be green, and I want to color this now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to press right click. You will find something called invert selection. Select inverse. So the select inverse will completely invert your selection. Now if I press Control Backspace, it will color everything with white except what I'm selecting because I inverted my selection. But it covered this part because I colored white here. So if I bring this one below, this one will overlap it. Okay, the cool thing about that, you can draw a rectangle maybe. Then you can go to this one, you can press Shift, and you can add whatever you want. Then you will color. Then you can make a new selection here in the middle. And then color this with Control Backspace, which is the opposite. The white, which is the background color. Then Control D to get rid of the selection. Make sure you always press Control D after every selection to get rid of the selection. And if you want to bring your selection back, you press Control Z, it will bring it back. Control D will get rid of it. Okay, I wanna explain one more thing. I'll make a new layer. Let's call it straight. Okay, I wanna explain one thing about that. Let's say I want this one to go in a straight line. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna, after pressing like my first click, I'm gonna hold shift. So what this does, it will make me like go in a straight line. If I move it down, it will make me go in a 45 degree, 90 degree, like 135, 180, 175, like that. It will keep going in like the 45 degree manner. So if I wanna draw something like that, and now I'll press click. Let's say for example, I made a mistake. So I wanna get rid of only the last point. How to do that? You press backspace. So it jumps 1 point back. So now I'm stuck to that point. If I press backspace again, I jump to that point. If I press backspace again, I jump to that point. Okay. One more thing is that, let's say if you're making a selection and you want to zoom in or out, the Alt and scroll won't work. So you will do that with Control and plus or Control and minus. Okay. So let's say now I want to draw a letter A. So I'm going to press click, go up, make something like that. I'm holding shift to go in a straight line. Something like that. Okay. That's not it. We need to deduct the inner part. So I'm going to press Alt. Then I'm going to like I want a straight line. So I'm going to hold shift again. And draw something like that. Now I'm going to press Alt backspace. Now I created a letter. You can try like creating letters. We could also do it with like a rectangle, pressing shift, another rectangle, pressing shift, another rectangle. Then using the lasso, we'll press shift to add, and then we draw that part, something like that. Something like that. Okay, so you're free to play around with the selection tools. So now I want to explain the last thing, which is called the feather. I'm going to create a new layer, call it feather. Okay, let's say I want to draw a rectangle, but I don't want it to be sharp. So you have here something called feather. So let's say I'll make it something like 8 pixels. Then I'll draw a selection, and then I'm going to color with any color. You see what happened here? It made the edges fade. So this is with 8. If I make it back 0 and I draw and color, to see the difference. So this one added color to everything. This one, the last 8 pixels were faded out from 100% to 0% until completely invisible. So make sure your feather is always 0 unless you want that effect. Okay, now we're done with the first two and we're gonna jump to the third one, but I'm gonna show you how it's gonna be used in this photo. Okay, there is the quick selection tool and the magic wand tool. So the quick selection tool is that one. You press on that click. Wait, make sure it's like on the first one. And here you have the size of it. What the quick selection tool does, it reads what's happening and it makes a selection based on what's happening. So if I do something like that, it will start reading. You see, now I made a selection of only the sky. In episode 3, we remembered how to edit something. So I can go to image adjustments, brightness and contrast. Now I can only target the sky. You see? So this is what the quick selection tool does. I'm gonna press Ctrl D. It adds a selection, it reads what's happening in the photo and start adding a selection based on that. Okay, however, let's say I made something like that, but I don't want it to like be on the C. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna hold Alt will change it to minus. So now I'm gonna minus that part. Let's say I wanna minus some part of the sky. I'm gonna hold Alt and minus this part. Hold Alt minus. Let's say I wanna add the phone to it. I'm gonna hold Shift. It will be a plus. Then I'm gonna add the phone. This is a quick way to select. It's not very accurate, but it's a way to select things. Let's say now I wanna get rid of my finger, but my selection, like the circle, is too big. So I can go to this one, and here I will have size. I will make the size smaller and see. You see now the size is a lot smaller, even more smaller. Okay, now I'm gonna hold Alt and I'm gonna minus the finger. Let's go to image adjustments, hue saturation. We can make that area maybe black and white or make it more colorful. So this is a way of a selection tool. You can also use that, then go to the rectangle, press shift add, go to the lasso tool, press shift and draw something. You can like mix between the three of them all together and control D to deselect. Okay, now I'm gonna press Control Z to go back. I want to go back even further. Remember what we used to do? Control and Alt, which is Command and Option, and Z again, again, until we're back to our first thing. I'll keep pressing Z till I'm back to my first thing, which is this one. Now I'll press Control D to get rid of the selection. Okay, let's jump to the other one, which is the Magic Wand tool. Okay, in the Magic Wand tool, make sure these two are like ticked. It's important, and make sure you're on the first one. And we have something here called tolerance. This is the only thing we're gonna play with. Okay, what the magic tool does, it reads the information. I'll press one click now. You see, what it did, it read all the colors which are close to each other, and it made them all together in a selection. Now I can press shift, and I can stand here, press click. It read all the colors here, shift and click, click. It didn't read that area because the color here is different from here. This cloud is too dark, so it didn't read it. So I'm gonna press shift and select, make sure I was selecting everything. Oh, now I clicked on the C, that's why it made all that selection. To go back, I don't want that, Control Z, it will remove the last selection. Shift and add this, add this, add that. But the problem here, if you see, I will go back, Control Z. When I add this, it also adds the C because they are a little bit close together. So how to fix that? It's all in the tolerance. The lower the number, the less the sensitivity of the magic wand is gonna be. Let's say if I make this one like 50, it's a high number. If I press shift and click here, it will target a lot of stuff close to each other in color. So I'll press Control Z. Let's make it a low color, something like 15. And then I'm gonna press shift and click here. You see it only targeted a smaller area, although we clicked in the same right position. So I'm gonna hold shift and click here. So you play around with the tolerance. If your like selection is selecting a lot of stuff together, reduce the tolerance. If there is like a very, okay, I'll draw something for you to make it easy. Let's say we have here black, and we have here something like, let's say a very bright gray, something like that. Let's draw another selection here. Okay, no, that's too dark. Let's say something here. And the last thing, something white here. If I take my magic wand, if I press click here, it's only gonna target that black. Okay, if I make the tolerance 150 and I click here, you see it targeted the black along with this, along with everything dark in the photo, because the tolerance is too high. Yet it did not select the white because white is so far away from black. So you only make that high if your like selection is too opposite from each other. Otherwise, make it always, the random value is 32. 32 will be good. In this case, it's because the black here is like touching the black in the phone. If I want only that black, I'll make it something like 5 maybe, and I press click. You see now it's only selecting the black because the tolerance is low and it is very sensitive. Okay, that's it. You can also add like a selection like that. Then you can go with the quick selection tool, hold shift, add this area of white. You can take the rectangle, hold shift, add this. You can take the elliptical tool, you can hold shift, add and hold alt while adding and shift while adding. So now you're drawing a circle. And you can take this lasso, hold shift, add, and hold alt and minus. And finally you can go to the polygonal lasso, hold shift, and just draw anything. Now you can create a new layer. Remember how we used to color? Click any color, alt, backspace. Now we colored everything we selected in one go with using all the selection tools. To move it, just the move tool, and move the last layer we made. Okay, that's it for today's tutorial. Thank you guys. Make sure you watch all the tutorials before and the ones that's gonna be after that.